Hi everyone, I'm recording from my car because I'm pretty sure that's what all moms of 4 kids do. They hide in their car. I wanted to talk about something that's been coming up a lot lately. I myself make it a part of my process when I do land clearings or demonic entity removals, or I help hauntings cross over. And what I mean by that is I dig to the root of the cause. But I've had messages come through, I've had clients come through, I've had a lot of people come through with the same exact topic having issues with the same process. So I wanted to come on and explain to everybody on my pages how it works and why it's imperative to be aware of the process. So most people walk into a haunting or a haunting scenario with no idea in how to manage the energy, work with the energy, or even help the energy cross over, or being able to tell the difference between a haunting or a demonic entity disguising itself as a haunting. This is actually way more common than people think. And demonic entities are really just energies of lower vibration, but that lower vibration gets very, very toxic. They can be very dangerous. They can attack. They can be vicious. They feed off our local energy here on Earth when they are stuck here on Earth. Usually, demonic entities are called in by people. A really common one that I see is a coven or a tribe might call in a demonic entity unknowingly and make it kind of like the master of the coven, and in turn it gets protected temporarily while it feeds their protector. This is common in Native American tribes. It's common with which is common every day. People in their own home can do this. But the issue is that it's like having a beast that can't be tamed in your home. So what happens is eventually that beast decides, like, wait a minute, I don't need a master. I don't need to comply. They literally function in chaos and destruction. They don't like taking orders. They get very hungry, and they start kind of creating their own reality or breaking free. Now, that's when they kind of escape the prisms of their local surrounding area, and they can become issues for other people. That's usually when somebody else gets called in. Somebody else would get, be like, what is this? This is draining me. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm negative. I'm having a hard time staying positive. I'm having a hard time sleeping. My life feels like it's falling apart. I can't find anything positive in my life, even though I know that it's there. I just can't see it anymore. This is an entity that has now escaped the confines of its calling, so where it was invited, now moved to a different location, and they travel. And I think that it's amazing because technology is evolving so much, and it's like the entities are learning to use technology for their advantage. So what happens is these entities create havoc, and that havoc gets noticed, and then they have to seek help. They do feed off the energy in a home. So sometimes vacant homes don't have a lot of energy because there's no people moving around in it. A lot of times construction projects will wake up these entities because it creates energy. So then these entities are drawn to that location and kind of feed off all that awakening or all that energy, and then they get more powerful, and then all of a sudden it's a problem. So the issue comes when people don't understand how to remove these entities, work with these entities, cross them over, or can't even see them because they hide very well and they disguise themselves very well. And then they're creating these videos or shows where they're feeding the entity energy. So if we think about it, all entities, all beings are energy. We are all layers of energy. I always say everything is energy. It's literally, our spirit is literally layered energy that creates our physical experience, our physical environment. So, we know that our skin is energy. We know that our environment is energy. We know that if you look into a piece of wood even, you would see little tiny molecules that create that, and they're kept together by an energy or frequency or vibration or whatever it is that we call it. So everything is energy. And if you're directing energy to one specific object, even if it's through TV, you're directing energy to it, you're feeding it. So a lot of people are now opening up like these shows and these things where they can't deal with the entity, they can't manage it, they can't help the people of the house, and now they're feeding it, and they kind of just walk away from it and are like, good luck. Now, I have been aware of this for a very long time because, like I said, I do property cleansings. So what happens is I'll have a client come to me, and that client can be from across the world, but I anchor to their soul, their physical body, and I can clear their land. But I do so by finding the origins of the issue, by healing and clearing that, and then clearing the land, and then helping the people heal and move on. A lot of people don't know how to do that. A lot of people don't have that ability, or they haven't trained that ability. So they're kind of walking in and just saying, oh cool, a haunting, let me collect some evidence, let me spook some people, let me spook myself, and let me walk away from it. But now you're filming it, you're showing it on TV, you're sharing the story. That energy goes to feed that entity. So I always make sure before I tell a story or share a story that the entity has been dismembered and removed completely. And how these things work. Now, I'll use a personal example that I've dealt with personally because I feel like those are the best examples. If you watch my video, I think it's the Father of All Demons. It's on YouTube. I explain the process of finding an entity and then removing its kind of like traps or its beings in its environment that it has trapped. And through that video, I explained how this entity kept coming back to life. And the reason it kept coming back to life is because it was anchored to a collection of souls. So apparently all demons, their way that they thrive and survive is by collecting souls. So they do so in different aspects. For example, it really depends on their success at their job. Some are way more successful than others. Others are just beginning to take root and ground, might have a small collection of people they're connected to that they protect in exchange for feeding off their life force. And others really learn to establish themselves to the land and to the property by collecting and trapping local souls, but then expanding and creating many collection zones. And in that way, they're always going to be stronger and stronger, which with each collection zone, they get stronger and stronger. So in this particular example, I could see one collection zone. And when I was working on removing that, the entity kept coming back. It was stronger and it was still coming back and it was still popping through and it was still kind of attacking and being defensive. Then I was called to multiple places in like the world where this thing had already established itself through other cultures, through other tribes, through other covens. And I could see why it kept coming back. And then we were able to kind of remove all of those houses of connection that it had established over the thousands of years it existed. So it was really fascinating because we found the root of the issue, but we also found out why that thing kept coming back. And it was something I had people who dealt with it directly, who were attacked by it, who had literal physical attacks. It was a very strong entity. So having that kind of strength is something that, would cause a red flag. You don't want to have something that's very powerful like that kind of just chilling around without actually dealing with it. So in many ways, these little like pop-ups that it had established were feeding it. But now we kind of have like a, it's like a faster connection, because if these beings get on TV, then all of a sudden the world, their attention is now directed towards this entity that nobody removed, nobody healed, nobody helped move on. So I was alerted to this recently because I had somebody message me, and I thought it was a really interesting conversation where they were like, yeah, well, we went on one of those shows and they literally just walked out and said they couldn't do anything about it. And it seems like it was a dangerous thing to do. And it definitely wasn't a nice thing to do. I feel like you're leaving out the whole point of finding and removing these things. You don't want to, essentially, you don't want to play their side. You don't want to play their game. You don't want to feed them and allow them to stay. They're destructive beings. They're limiting our own growth through collective understanding and collective compassion and growth. So we want to stay aware and alert, and we want to do the healing necessary to help them move on or cross over or eradicate them from our environment. And it's interesting because, again, we call them demonic and everything. They're just lower level entities that are functioning in chaos and destruction. So they can be very destructive, they can be very aggressive, they can be very violent, but essentially we just have to send them home. Their home is where they can be themselves and not destroy our goals, our processes, our physical bodies, our emotions. They can live and thrive in that area. But the reason we call them over is because we think that we can control them. And we think that they want to play the game. We think that they want to be tamed. We think that they will follow directions. But we just don't. We don't energetically resonate. And that is why so many of us change around the energy of a lower level entity, because we have to lower our vibration to resonate with it, and we become toxic to ourselves because they function in destruction and chaos, and that's toxic to us. So we literally become self-destructive to merge with the energy given when we allow them through the veils by calling them in. So it can be a very dangerous thing, and that's why I wanted to come on here to just kind of share a little bit about it, because it just keeps coming up. The theme just keeps popping up all over the place. So thanks for listening. If you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe and share, or share it with some friends. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for listening in.